Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn, that's Emily, and it feels like it's been forever since we've seen each other.
It has been forever. I have been MIA, traveling for work, at my brother's wedding, just, doing all of the things except for F1, and now we're finally back.
Yes, we're back, finally. F1 is going to Austria. I'm still at camp in a different part of the classroom that I recorded in 2 weeks ago because that part of the classroom is not currently available. Shout out to my friend who's letting me borrow this classroom. I'm also A, surrounded by bagpipers, and B, being eaten alive by mosquitoes. So we are doing great here at summer camp, just great.
I think the highlight of my life is that the Bagpipers are back because I made a joke when Kathryn first went to camp and I was like, oh, return to the Bagpipers. And she's like, no, let's not say that yet. I don't think they're coming back. Sure enough, they're
Surprise!
Back. Love.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kathryn is back at camp and I'm back in Argentina. I feel like this is a flashback. This is deja vu all over again. Hopefully the Wi-Fi situation is better than it has been in the past. If you know, you know. But yeah, I'm here for vacation for my birthday, my annual Mendoza wine trip for my birthday. Yeah. So we're right back where we started.
It feels very full circle because we did start the podcast around this time, give or take a couple weeks last year. We started when Danny Ricciardo was surprised
2 years ago, Kathryn.
2 years ago. I have been so bad at time this whole week. Like my brain is just gone. But yeah, it's been 2 years, very full circle, of the surprise episode that we threw together when it was announced that Danny Ricciardo was replacing Nick DeVries, which is a very rough episode from us, but it's linked above if you want to watch it and see what the origin story of our podcast looked like.
Love. How we have not gone so far. We're still in the same place.
We're in the same place, but we're also on Netflix.
We are on Netflix, yes.
Yes.
But no, things have been good. My brother got married, which was so exciting. So I was in Colorado for that. And as much as I love the podcast and F1, I think my family would have murdered me if I took time out of wedding weekend.
Sorry, I have to go.
I think Elling and Brittany would have literally killed me. And if they didn't, my mom would. Actually, no, let's flip that. They honestly would have been so supportive of like, yeah, we'll find you an empty room. And my mom would have been like, Emily, no, this is your brother's wedding. So
yeah,
love them.
Tracks.
But we're back and I'm so happy to be back. I'm also like kind of happy to be back in Argentina. One, because it's full circle, but two, because I get to watch the F1 race this weekend with some of my Argentine friends who love F1. Still trying to get my American friends into F1. It's a really slow process, but I'm going to sit down with a bunch of them this weekend to watch. One of them is actually our guest picker, or one of our guest pickers this weekend, which is exciting. So yeah, bringing them into the fold. But yeah, we're back.
We're so back. And let's dive into some news because there has been a decent amount of news in not a lot of news, but like a decent amount in the last 2 weeks. I think one of the biggest actually came out either today or yesterday, a couple days ago by the time you hear this episode, is that Liberty Media, which is the organization that owns Formula One, got approval from the European Commission to buy MotoGP. And now Formula One and MotoGP will be under the same umbrella of ownership, which is kind of a huge deal for, motorcycle motorsport.
No, it is. I think it's going to give them a bigger platform. I think it's going to broaden the audience. I mean, logically, right, we think of support races and like, could we have F1 MotoGP weekends where like it's all wrapped up in one? I think this will really bring to light, bring more fans into the fold of MotoGP. I personally am not like a huge MotoGP fan. If I see it, I'll catch a highlight, but it's not something I'm like naturally drawn to. But that's not to say I couldn't be in the future. I could see potentially like a big Netflix series around it. Like Liberty Media does a really good job of marketing F1. I think they'll do the same for MotoGP. So I think this can, it could be exciting.
Yeah, this is a nearly $5 billion deal, which Liberty Media in 2017, they bought Formula One for $8 billion, and it's now worth around $27 billion. So
which is insane.
That's massive growth in however many years it's been. I cannot do math right now, but I think it's really interesting. And I think that like the idea of a shared weekend for F1 and MotoGP, the one that really stands out to me, and I know there's a decent amount of crossover in the calendar, at least of like race circuits, is COTA.
Because I was going to say COTA,
MotoGP has a great race in COTA. That was actually a really exciting race this year. And of course, we have our race in COTA. So that stands out to me as like the obvious answer of like, of course there should be a crossover weekend at that track.
Yeah. So super off track and random, but a kid that I started with working like quit 2 years in, 3 years in maybe. And now he's like in a feeder series of MotoGP.
Ooh.
Which like,
that's so cool.
So he's like, he moved to Austin to be closer to COTA, and like that's where he trains and he races there. And I like will see him all the time, and I'm like, that's so crazy. Like I started working in accounting with this kid, and now he's like racing motorcycles. But it was always something that he liked, but I didn't realize he was like even good at it. So, you know, props to him. But it's like, what am I doing wrong with my life? Why am I still in accounting?
Yeah, no, MotoGP is a fascinating sport. I've caught bits and pieces of it because right now they have their TV agreement is through Fox Sports, and so sometimes I'll catch like the tape delays, and it's such an interesting sport. And one of the most interesting things to me about MotoGP is they have like literal actual butt cameras. Like there are cameras on the back of the bike that face the back of the driver, but it's really just their butt.
No, it is. And I was listening to a podcast earlier, and like Lewis got on a bike.
He did, like, yeah.
And he actually did really, really well and was setting down really good times. But I mean, I feel like Lewis could do anything.
It's just Lewis,
well.
yeah.
It's just Lewis. But no, it's crazy. It's so much more, I think, body, right? Because
it really is.
Yeah, it's a very different sport than F1, although it's like still motorsport. It's very different. The control you have to have, you're on two wheels. It's wild, but
and even like going into like, we can get in the weeds and talk about this forever, but I think like safety standards are so interesting when you compare open wheel motorsport where you like don't have anything on your head to a motorcycle where you are just racing with your body. And they have like massive, like those race suits that the MotoGP drivers wear are like super protective and have like airbags in the back. But it's fascinating. I really can't wait to see how MotoGP is going to establish itself within the umbrella of Liberty Media and how this is ultimately going to integrate into F1.
Yeah, no, I agree. Shall be interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so something else that came out that just like is grinding my gears and rubbing me the wrong way, and I feel like it's just another like media attention grab is Valtteri Bottas. So last year he did this whole like, what's next? Like, where am I going? And it's this whole big campaign. Literally,
we need to go back to Mercedes as their reserve driver.
About nothing. Yeah, it's like, we don't care. You're literally a reserve driver for a child. This is not exciting. But he's doing this whole thing to tease potentially a Cadillac seat, which it's been out there earlier that Bottas might be taking the Cadillac seat.
He's definitely one of the candidates.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. Like, he's an experienced driver who doesn't currently have a seat. It would make sense for him to be a potential, along with like Checo, I think
Zhou Guan Yu, Mick Schumacher.
Exactly. Yep. So there's a handful of people who have previous experience that could potentially be taking the seat. I feel like he just takes everything too far. And I don't know if it's necessarily him or like his media team or PR team who's like, oh, I think this would be a really good idea. It's just annoying at this point, personally. Like, I don't know. Cadillac has come out and said, like, we're not announcing anytime soon. So, like...
But also they only have so much time. Like, I really don't see Cadillac as announcing, like, during the winter break. Yes, they're probably going to need to wait to see what drivers are going to be available because we're going to have a pretty healthy, silly season this season as well. And that could also dictate availability. Like, maybe Yuki leaves for Cadillac. We don't know yet. But it's... Like, yes, they're not announcing anytime soon. Like everyone's teasing that Mercedes and George are going to announce an extension for George at Silverstone. Duh. But they still don't have an abundance of time. It's 6 months to the end of the year.
Right. And I mean, time is relative, right? But I think Cadillac will be the last team to announce its drivers, which makes sense because if they approach Checo and they're like, hey, we have no team. It's the first year. Do you want a seat? In my mind, his team is going to tell him, like, hey, let's try and field other offers from established teams before we go with this unknown that could potentially tank your reputation even further than the double DNF. And so I personally think that they will announce in the winter break or very close to the start of the season just because they won't know. And yes, they need time in the car, but as long as they announce before testing, there's not like a huge advantage there. I really think drivers are going to hold out to be with an established team over taking a seat with Cadillac.
Yeah, and there's also, like, I don't know all of the rules in great detail, but there's only so far you can take your testing of previous car situations, which obviously Cadillac doesn't have a previous car to test, whereas every other established team already does. So it's not like they can get a potential driver in a car to test unless that driver is testing elsewhere. So it will be very interesting to see, because I think the only driver that's actively racing right now in any way that's in contention for the seat is Mick Schumacher with endurance racing.
Yeah. Checo's just enjoying his like multi-million-dollar condo in Miami right now.
And I think he and his family went on like an African safari. So like good for him, spending time with the wife and the kids, because you know he has 800 of them and is busy.
He's like 3 children.
I think it's 5.
Okay, hold on. We need to live fact check this because I don't believe you.
I'm pretty sure it's 4 or 5.
He has 3.
No.
Carol, yes, he has 3.
Really?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure
this is hilarious. Sergio Perez Jr., lol, Carlota Perez, and Emilio.
No, there's a youngest child. I'm pretty sure it's 4.
Okay, they have 4. Well, then they're missing 1, but anyways, he doesn't have 800. 3 or 4 kids.
I mean, that's like 800. I'm surrounded by children all day, every day, six days a week.
1 kid is too many.
There are so many children here. We legitimately just got 60 new kids in today. So I have been running around like a headless chicken. I'm like, here, I'm dropping something off and I have to go record a podcast. Bye. See you at dinner.
Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Cadillac will have drivers eventually. I think Valtteri Bottas is just literally being annoying in the media per usual, but whatever.
I think he's trying really hard to
stay
relevance and keep himself in the media, which is admittedly what most of the other drivers are not doing. Zhou Guanyu is busy being a Ferrari reserve driver. Mick Schumacher is also kind of playing the campaign bit, but Bottas is really playing the campaign bit.
Yeah, which is annoying, but whatever.
And there's the train.
Choo-choo!
Yep.
Okay, but in more exciting news, let's get into our favorite human on planet Earth, James Vowles. He signed a long-term extension with Williams, which is no surprise. Like, he came in, I think he had 3-5 years potentially originally in his contract when he left Mercedes to become the TP. But he had a vision, and it's working. Although, like, Sainz is kind of crawling, but it's really
still
working. It's still working, and he's bringing this team back to its glory days on the very, early cusp of that. But he's doing a great job with the team. I think he's making all the right moves. The fact that he could sign a driver like Sainz is incredible.
That was key to his extension. Like, I think without Carlos, like, you want a guy like Carlos, but then you also want to keep the guy who got Carlos.
Right.
And James and Carlos have that like really great analytical mind. They really like know strategy super well. Obviously, we've seen Carlos doing strategy from the car for both cars at both Williams and Ferrari.
Yep.
And so it's really great that the ownership group behind Williams Racing sees that and is willing and is interested in sticking with this plan that he has, because it obviously hasn't been smooth sailing. We all know what happened last year with like having to withdraw Logan Sargent so that Alex Albon could have the chance to score points in a bad car with all of the crashes, which they have not spent nearly as much money on car damage this year yet.
Right.
So that also is really helping their case with the drivers that they have right now.
Yeah, I think the direction he's taking the team is really positive. I also think, like, going back to the Carlos thing, Carlos has openly come out to say, like, if I couldn't sign with a top team, I wanted to sign with a team that I could make a top team. So,
Right.
like, James has a plan and this vision that Carlos bought into. And I think if he can maintain the team of Albon and Sainz for as long as possible, he will build a tier 1 team. I truly believe it. I think James can do anything. I'm such a
agreed.
But yeah, no, and this is really exciting.
They're having their best year in years, and in at
years,
least a decade.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. So that's really fun. And then of course we would be, you know, not doing our jobs as podcasters of F1 if we did not talk about the F1 movie. So this does come out this week. I don't know when it comes out in the US. I know that it comes out in Argentina, I believe Friday.
Also
or maybe
Friday
Thursday.
in the US.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to see it here with subtitles. Can't wait. My movie for $2, which I'm so excited about.
I am going to be paying so much more than $2. Like, oh,
well, I don't know, because like the economy is different now than when I left, and
right.
Things are a lot more expensive, like relatively. But no, I'm so excited to go to my, you know, old theater and get my extremely bland popcorn with no salt. So go team! But no, I'm excited to see it. It looks exciting. I mean, the more that we're seeing come out about it, I think it's just going to be a fun movie for summer. I am buying into it a little bit more. I think we're going to struggle on plot, and I think we're also going to struggle with like actually being fans and like being super technical about it. But I also think it's just going to be an exciting summer movie, kind of like what the director did with Top Gun Maverick. I think it'll still be like exciting with Lewis on it. So I was listening to Brad Pitt went on Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and they were talking a lot about the movie and talking about how, you know, they have to thread the needle of fans who don't watch F1 and fans who do, and like making sure they're at least bringing those groups together. And it was really important to them to be as technically accurate as possible, which is why they brought on Lewis Hamilton and why he was a consultant, why he's a producer. So it should have the F1 feel with like a little plot as well. I don't know. After listening to that interview with Brad Pitt, I was a little bit more excited to see the movie, which I think is good because we all know I've not been super excited about this movie. So, you know, we'll see. But
yeah, it's been the reviews that I've been seeing have been very interesting, and everything related to racing has been extremely positive. And
which is good, I think.
Which is I think is actually the most important part, because if you have bad racing content, then no matter the rest of the movie, it's still going to be like, but the racing wasn't good. So
and you would lose the F1 fans.
Exactly.
Like if there's something technically wrong, you would lose the F1 fans. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's going to be stuff that I think you and I are in a pretty good sweet spot of, like, we know enough about Formula One to be able to pick little things out, but we don't know enough to be like too nitpicky, like, oh, he shifted the wrong way in that turn. So
or like, oh, Wing would never be at that angle, like that. Yeah, we're not.
I mean, we might notice like a DRS not deploying, which could be funny when it's like DRS deploying, but it didn't actually. So I could see that. The other thing that I have heard, which doesn't necessarily bother me, is that the female representation in the movie is perhaps not what it could be. It's not its most best for women, which like in one aspect of it, it's like, okay, whatever. But you also have women like Carrie Condon's character who are in like a pretty significant role. And it's like, why is a woman being treated badly when you're putting her in technically a position of power? The big drama has been around Simone Ashley, which I honestly don't care about, which like everyone's like, oh, it's Simone Ashley. But like Simone Ashley's been big and she was great in Bridgerton. I didn't love her season, but she was great in Bridgerton. But I don't think that means that she had to have a massive role in an F1 movie. In this F1 movie.
I mean, look at F1 in reality.
Now,
how many women are truly involved in the team around the sport? Like we have Danica Patrick, who's moonlights as a presenter only for American races, and then we have
Susie Wolf.
But she's on the periphery.
Yeah, but
she's on yes, she's involved in motorsport, but she's on the periphery because she's F1 Academy.
Right.
And then you have Ocon's race engineer, which is she's the first in a very long time, or maybe the first ever.
She's the first ever race engineer. Laura Mueller. We've had a handful of high level team personnel who have been women,
like Bernie Collins.
Bernie Collins is notably one of them.
Maybe the representation of women is lacking, but I don't think it's inaccurate from reality.
It probably isn't. I think some of it has been dramatized a little bit. Obviously, that's what the movie's for. But I also don't necessarily think it's going to ruin my experience of watching the movie as a woman in motorsport.
No, I agree. I mean, you could talk about this for any industry, any movie. Like, not everyone's portrayed amazingly. And also, we haven't seen the movie, so we don't know the actual plot. We don't know the actual portrayal. So maybe our opinion will change next week after we've seen the movie.
We'll discuss.
I'm sure we will. Kathryn will have a million opinions. And I'll have like 5. But no, I think it'll be interesting for us to see it. I am excited, though, now that I watched the interview. So...
yeah, I think it looks really well done. And at this point, it's been, a year and a half. I'm just really interested to see what we've been teased with for so long, see how it all comes together.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's almost like I want to get it over with, which not in a bad way, but like I just want to get to it because it's been teased for so long. I feel like it needs to be here.
I will absolutely see this movie multiple times. So it's a matter of...
I'm kind of surprised that it's not coming out during the summer break. Because, to me, logically, it would make more sense for it to come out because, we're lacking F1 content. We need it.
I think it's more based on the film industry's timing,
which is fair.
The summer blockbuster tentpole, because this is the summer blockbuster, and this is that time of year where we're getting, we're 10 days away from 4th of July, so that's really the time where people are going out and seeing movies, and everyone's out of school and all of those things. So I think that it's more of a consideration of that than it is to the F1 schedule.
Fair, that is fair.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, just a little funny lull to keep us going through the podcast. Kimi Antonelli passed high school.
Yep. Congratulations.
The child has graduated. Congrats.
He took his exams. He passed his exams. He has matriculated and now no longer has to do homework on the weekends.
I'm dead. Well, congrats, Kimi. You had a podium. Now you've passed high school, so...
now you're a real racer.
Yep, you're just... can only go up from here. But yeah, so that's the news. Honestly, for the time that it's been since Canada, I thought we would have more. But
yeah, there really hasn't been a lot to come out. I think that the F1 movie, the premiere and the lead up, really overtook most of what could have been considered news.
Agreed.
And everything else is just someone's gonna say something dumb next week.
Yeah. No,
going into Silverstone.
Yeah. Oh, I love Silverstone. Also, Silverstone's always over my birthday week or weekend. So
it is. And over 4th of July.
And it's over 4th of July, which I always think is so funny because...
America.
Yeah. Anyways, so we're going into Austria, and I could have sworn on my life, on my unborn children, that this was a sprint race. I think it's because I love Austria as a sprint race. It's a short track. It makes sense to be a sprint race. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have another sprint weekend because we haven't had one in a very long time. But no, it's not this year, which is super surprising to me.
Now that we're talking about this, I remember when they published the 2025 sprint schedule, we said, why did they take the Red Bull ring off?
It's so dumb. So
also,
I think just really love that Red Bull has monopolized all of F1 because they have 2 teams. They also have their own track. It's just... good for them.
Yeah.
Also,
that's
one thing I do not miss about Argentina is these massive ass water bottles. It's 2 liters, and they either sell an itty bitty one or this. So it's just I have to keep drinking from it.
They don't have like what, regular 24-ounce size water bottles?
No, they have itty bitty baby ones, or these.
That's fascinating. Yeah. My summer water bottle is from a random brand I picked up from Target that I decorated with a bunch of F1 stickers from a F1 Instagram account that I discovered early on called Good Luck Tess. So if you're looking for some really fun meme-like stickers, they have one of Kimi and Antonelli that she just put out recently that's rainbow holographic, like a cross between Kimi Antonelli and the Magic School Bus, that just says I'm just a child, and I love that sticker so much, and I wish I had room for it on the water bottle.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I'm obsessed.
But I'm just, back to Austria. Surprised it's not a sprint weekend, especially because last year was not only a sprint weekend, but it was an interesting sprint weekend because Red Bull at home didn't have the best weekend. And it was really one of those turning points of the season where McLaren really started going on that charge and Red Bull really started to fall off.
Yeah. I think Checo really sucked in Austria last year.
I mean, probably.
He sucked in like every race, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at camp. I actually don't remember what happened. It could have been one of the most exciting races ever, but I would have to look at past Kathryn from last year's recap episode to really know what we were talking about. But
oh my god, that was so long ago. Who knows?
It was a whole year. But the sprint podium was Max did win, and then it was Oscar and Lando. And the Grand Prix was George won, then Oscar and Carlos in P3 in one of his, few highlighted moments of his bondage to Ferrari.
Yeah. But this year we have no sprint, which is depressing. But we do have some exciting free practice subs to McLaren and Ferrari. Each are doing one free practice, one substitution for the rookie drivers. So Alex Dune will be driving for Lando Norris, and then Dino
Beganovic.
I never can do last names, which is hilarious because my last name is such a mouthful. Will be driving for Charles Leclerc. So this is exciting. Love to see how the new drivers do.
Yeah, Beganovic, this will be his second appearance and also his second stand-in for Charles, which totally makes sense because Lewis needs as much time in the car as possible, especially with Ferrari potentially bringing some monster upgrades this weekend. So the fact that Beganovic is going in for Leclerc for the second time, which this season, in case you don't remember, every driver has to be replaced twice instead of just once per season. So this is the last time Charles will have to bow out. But it makes sense why they're going to wait to the end of the year for Lewis. And then for McLaren, it is actually kind of interesting that they're going in for Orlando first rather than Oscar, because I really feel like they would be happy to give Oscar one less practice session available just because Lando is their golden boy. But Alex Dune is one of the, future stars of the McLaren Young Driver program. He's currently their Formula E reserve driver and is the current F2 standings leader going into this week with 2 wins and 4 podiums. So he has a lot of potential, and this is going to be a really great opportunity to see what he can do in an F1 car.
Yeah, but I also think it's interesting that Lando and Oscar are locked in for such long contracts. It's like this kid's just going to sit on the bench forever, or he's going to take a hike to another team.
He could easily, because this is his first year in F2. He just came up from F3, where I believe he finished 14th last year. So there's not really a rush, and they don't have the same backlog of drivers that the Red Bull driver program has. So this is an opportunity that they have to give someone, and they might as well give it to this kid and get him some experience under his belt. And this really, shows that they do have some faith into this guy, that they're willing to put him into one of the big boy seats.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And then the other thing to note about this weekend is Max Verstappen still has 11 penalty points, and the points don't fall off until after the race weekend on Sunday. So Max could still be banned from the race if he gets any penalty points before race starts. So if there's an incident in practice that is his fault, or an incident in qualifying that is his fault, he will be banned for the race on Sunday, and then he will go back to 9 points. If he doesn't. So that's kind of like the big question mark for Max going into this weekend, which I really don't think is he's not going to mess around on Red Bull's home soil.
Yeah, I'm dead. All right, so with that, let's get into our 2025 Austria predictions. So Kathryn and I pick pole, podium, and P10. We don't do very well. It is very hard. Our guest pickers can attest to this. But yeah, so, and then, sometimes we just have drivers who randomly show up on the podium, like Kimi Antonelli in Canada.
Yeah.
So,
surprise!
So Kathryn, who is your pole sitter for Austria?
I, with running around like a headless chicken, did not really have the brain capacity to try to figure out who would be a shock pole position that could. So I just went with Oscar.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I really think that pole is either, like, you have three options for pole: Oscar, Lando, or Max pulls out a miracle. But I think of those three options, Max is the most likely. And with the mystery Ferrari upgrades that we're going to see, and by mystery, I mean I haven't looked into them yet, that could throw a wrench in. George sometimes gets a random pole position that we just kind of ignore when he does. But I think, like, it's just so easy and so reasonable to pick Oscar right now for pole.
Agreed. That's why I did it. Okay, and then podium. Who is your podium?
So I went with, and I know you're not going to like this, and I'm probably going to like jinx myself, but I went with an Oscar win, a Charles Leclerc P2, and a George Russell P3.
Ugh. Here's the thing. When we put faith in George, he fucks up. But when we don't trust him, he wins.
He ends up on the podium where he wins. Yeah. There's no winning here for us at the very least.
George is throwing a wrench into our season. He's ruining it for us. He's why we can't have nice things.
Exactly.
No, so I have a similar podium. I have Oscar, Charles, and then I have Max.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I have. And then because Kathryn and I are so on top of it this week, we have our guest pickers picks already. So they also have to pick with us, not after quali like they normally do. So you will also see how hard this is for our guest pickers. It's not just us who's really bad at this. So Kathryn and I each have one in our respective areas. So Kathryn has someone from camp, I believe, who is a guest picker. So who's your guest picker one, the relation to you, and what is their podium?
So guest picker is my friend Sarah. She is one of our senior staff members with me. And she is also, we discovered, she's also an F1 fan. And we spent many a morning in the bathroom talking about F1, or she would like glance over at my phone when I had qualifying out on my phone while we would be getting ready for our day. And Sarah's pick, and I wrote down in quotes that her pick is a Lando win, an Oscar P2, and for P3, she said, I want to pick Max, but it's probably going to be George. So I am giving her as guest picker. She's going to get a Max or George for her P3.
We will give it to her.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have my good friend Gaston. So Gaston is my former personal trainer when I lived in Argentina, turned friend. And so he has, and I'll just read the entire thing because I think it's really funny. So he has P1 is Leclerc, not just because I'm a Ferrari fan, but because Leclerc is generally really good in Austria.
Fair.
And then we have P2 is Max because he's Max, and it's also Red Bull's home race. Also fair. And then P3 we have Piastri because it's a fast circuit, so
McLaren
has to be on the podium. So Piastri.
Completely reasonable.
I love and respect it. I think Charles P1 is a little high hopes there, but they are bringing, upgrades this weekend, so who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. And also, I love that he provided us with explanations for his picks. And if you want to be a guest picker for us, send it in a DM with your reasoning or without. We will still consider you, but send in with your reasoning to going.off.track on Instagram, and you could be considered a guest picker for a future episode.
Yes. Honestly, I feel like it'd be more fun to pick strangers, not because we'll sit here and shit on them, but just because it'll be a different perspective. Because I feel like we generally talk to the same people each week. I probably could have told you what Gaston was going to pick just because we talk F1 so much, but I think it'll be interesting to see other people's perspectives.
Well, here's the thing that I can do is I could just hand to my friends a list of the drivers and say, pick your top three. out of nowhere, because my
then
friends...
we're going to be like Stroll for P1, and we all know that's not going to happen.
Well, we you know what? I think it might be fun to just ask them in general and just to see what they're going to say. So I think I might have my 3 companions provide us with, maybe not for this weekend, maybe for Silverstone, just the I don't know about Formula One, so I'm just picking names off vibes, and we'll see how close they get. Watch them be right.
We could have a 4th of July vibes weekend. Let's do that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Perfect. All right, and then getting into our probably the hardest one to pick, P10. We pick P10 because it's the last spot on the grid where you get points. They get 1 point for P10. We give ourselves 3 because it is so hard to pick. So who is your P10 for Austria?
So my P10, I am actually going with... Who am I going with? I'm going with Nico Hülkenberg, and I'm going for Hülkenberg because they had a really good Canada, and they're bringing more upgrades to Austria. So I think that we could start seeing more out of stake, probably more on Hulk's side, just because he has a little bit more experience than Bortoleto. But I do think that there's
he has like 15
a lot
years
of it.
Experience.
A massive amount of bits, but I do think that this could be very optimistic, at the very least for Hülkenberg's side of the garage. So I can see him in P10.
Fair. I see it. I understand it. I respect it. I don't know. I feel like I've fallen a little bit with this, which is hard for me, but I think I've just come to acceptance. I have Carlos Sainz in P10.
Ooh, okay.
I know. I don't love it. I love to see him like P5, P6, but
obviously.
But I think we're just struggling a little bit. So I think P10 is, as long as we can get a point, I think it's good for Williams. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that Williams did not have a really they didn't have good Canada at all, which
no,
like let's
you can't win
move
them all.
on and let's move on and let's bounce back, and this could very well be a bounce back type of weekend for Williams.
I agree. All right, so for surprise, I don't know how good this is as a prediction, but I think Max is really going to close the gap this weekend on Lando. I don't think Lando's going to have a good weekend again. I think he's a little struggling with identity crisis and like acceptance of not being the number 1 driver on the team.
Right.
So I think
no matter
he's going to struggle a little bit. Yep. And I think Max is going to, step up, get some big points, and really close that gap because they're not far off. They're very close.
No. Max came out of Canada with a very strong finish and really carved into Lando's lead for P2 in the championship.
Yep.
And I also picked that Red Bull is going to have a strong weekend, which is not a guarantee at the Red Bull Ring, but I do feel like Red Bull is trending up at the very least on Max's side. Obviously Yuki's still working through learning the car, which is only going to be an excuse for so long. But hopefully Yuki got a lot of really good sim work done over the last couple of weeks while Max was at home with the baby and sim racing and not going to the movie premieres. But my biggest surprise is also that Red Bull is going to have a stronger weekend.
Yeah, I love. And then that kind of brings me into my oops, going off of my surprise that Lando is just going to struggle. I don't know what it's going to be, but he will not have the weekend that he's hoping to have. So
yeah, mine is actually probably not like driving with my podium predictions, but I said that Ferrari's upgrades are not going to work.
Which is fair. You never know with Ferrari, honestly.
Yeah, and it's either they're not going to work or they're going to strategy themselves to death, and it's just not going to work for them because that is also
not
what
Ferrari.
I know. Not Ferrari. Like I don't have this little sticker on my water bottle that has it says Ferrari strategy 2025 plans Q through Z emergency use only ! Underline. So there is every chance that these upgrades are great, or these upgrades are going to be great for just Charles and not Lewis. But I do think that Ferrari will they're probably going to struggle.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, in closing, I'm excited to have racing again. I feel like it's been years, eons.
It feels like it's been 6 months.
I do like the Red Bull Ring. It's a fast circuit. It's always entertaining. track limits. Who knows how many people are going to get called for? Oh gosh,
yes.
Yeah, the scarring of 2023.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm excited. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting weekend. I am also really excited that it's back, even if I have to wake up super early to be able to watch it.
It's at 10 o'clock for me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think that still means 6 o'clock for me. So that's going to be not great. TBD on where I'm going to watch it. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be at camp, but if it's not, it still was. And yeah, this could be a very interesting and impactful weekend for a lot of teams, especially, the more teams bring upgrades, the more new information that we're going to get, especially between now when we're recording on Tuesday and when the weekend finally starts coming together at the end of the week. So I think that there's so much unknown, and a lot of the predictions that we're making are probably going to be totally, completely wrong by the time we get to Sunday.
Yeah, but who knows? We'll see.
Yep.
With that being said, up next we will have our recap episode, which will come out on Monday. Probably. We are in our summer season of who knows which way is up and when days are. So bear with us. We will always get the episode out when, who knows.
Eventually.
But yeah, that has been our Austria prediction episode. Thanks for going off track with us, guys.